Hey everyone, welcome back. It's National Poetry Month, and all month we are celebrating poets. And this week's poet is a Nuyorican writer and activist who has always had a passion for poetry. She's been a member of Capicu Culture for over a decade and co-founded La Sopa, which stands for the School of Poetic Arts, leading a workshop series at Boricua College, the Loisaida Center, and the Nuyorican Poets Cafe. One of her signature poems was first published in Breakbeat Poets, Volume 4, Latinx edition, and soon she will be featured in the upcoming #Poetry Fighters anthology. Joining us to tell us more, please welcome poet and activist Jani Rose.
Hello, Rhina. Thank you for your invitation to join you today. It's
Yay.
wonderful to see you for National Poetry Month. Let's celebrate. Thank you for inviting me during such a special time. We're blossoming, and poetry is in bloom all over the internet right now. I'm really excited to see all the things that the poets are presenting.
It's lovely, and it's lovely to be in the presence of someone who's so passionate about it. I mean, not only for yourself, but even for the next generation. I mean, you also serve as an educator in that area as well, and most recently, you just did something for the Nuyorican Poets Cafe. Let's share with our viewers what this new poetry series is about.
The Nuyorican Poets Cafe has begun a really exciting National Poetry Month series. I started last Saturday. It's a 3-hour intensive. And there were a lovely group of people, all ages, just from all over the place that were participating. And they will be joining us again for April 17th edition with Advocate of Words, who is a longtime member of Grito de Poetas, an amazing collective. And so we'll be coming together to write again and just learn more about poetry and communicate and just, be together,
And so because it was virtual, I'm going to assume that people were coming from all walks of life, all different, were they from different parts of the United States as well?
They were from different parts of the US, just all different age ranges, just this beautiful intergenerational group. And one of my quotes is, I write so that I could find the part of myself that lives in you, and so that you could find the part of yourself that lives in me. And that it was very much that. That was absolutely what we were finding, that as we are writing these pieces that are very specific to who we are, we all found seeds of something that we could relate to in those poems.
And I also love that you shared the writings of the poets that inspired you, such as Emily Dickinson, Julia de Burgos, and Ntozake Shange, which are all different backgrounds, right? They come from different cultural backgrounds, which now brings it into the conversation of inclusivity as well.
Absolutely. Very important.
And so how were you, I guess, sharing their works and how it inspired you? I mean, obviously it's about the words and it's about what they were sharing in their messaging, but all three of them are women. We'll start there.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously you provide some kind of history behind it, but just yourself as a writer, like what is it about each of these women that stood out for you in their style?
Okay, so Emily Dickinson, I started writing when I was 7. And Emily Dickinson was one of the first poets that was introduced to me. And unfortunately, as children in New York City, just across the United States, I guess, we're going to get a lot of Emily Dickinson and Edgar Allan Poe. It's what we all read.
Right.
And then a little later, we get a little Sylvia Plath, right? That's what they give us. And obviously the classics. But I found that Emily transcended the world that she was from, and that even as a little Puerto Rican girl in the Bronx, I could relate to what she was saying, because she was still writing that universal story. She was still talking about the human condition. She was still talking about what it felt like to be a little girl in this world that felt isolated and felt different, right? And who can't relate to that? That's
right.
Pretty much all of us at some point, if not always, right? That little seed. And Emily, I thought that she, as I grew, she continued to grow. As I read, she continued to grow with me. And then as I got older, I was a teenager when I read some Julia de Burgos in high school. And that just opens my heart, because I was an activist. My first protest was at the age of 8 years old. We were marching through the streets with signs that we made in school that said, "Say no to drugs and not in our neighborhood." So I was always protesting and out in the streets, Desert Storm, all these things as a little girl. And to find out that she was an activist and a poet and an artist and this
And that
independent
she was Puerto Rican
woman,
too.
this independent Puerto Rican woman during a time that women were supposed to be silent in the kitchen cooking, and she was 6 feet tall and just very strong and just this amazing character, and her work is absolutely astounding.
And
Just
timeless.
amazing, timeless. Her book Song of Simple Truth, translated by Jack Agüeros, one of the best translations, is one of my poetry Bibles. So I shared some of that with them. And then finally, in Tozaki Shange, her work, it's almost like they share this spirit, these three women. So in Tozaki Shange, being a beautiful Black woman, a strong Black woman, spoke to me, and how her fluidity and her flow and how colorful her words were and how powerful and poignant. And I wish I had known her, but I had the blessing of being able to sit at her feet at the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, to be inspired personally by her presence and spirit. So we shared these poems, and they got into it, and we read some of their work, each of their poems, and then we had a nice presentation by Paula Torre, to really introduce them to Julia, and it was fantastic. And I'm hoping to see more of that on the 17th. What they're gonna do with it, because we kicked it off pretty strong.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And I love that, we just finished Women's History Month. You incorporated them into National Poetry Month. Yep. And of course, like I mentioned at the top of the segment, you're educating the next generation of poets. Now, before we go, these sessions that you offer, are they, is everyone invited? Like, are there different levels in which you have to be at in order to participate?
No, one of the things that's such a blessing about these workshops is that you could be someone that just writes your poems in your bedroom at night, hiding, your journal in the shelf, or you could be someone who's profoundly, a prolific writer who's well known, has been writing for 40 years, and still you could get just equally brilliant work. Just a simple little poem. No one has to be a prodigy or anything at this. But to share space and to put your feelings on the page and express yourself, everyone benefits from that. All ages as well. We kept it, PG, so that we could have some youth, join us.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Intergenerational, across the states. And you know what? We can get more people across the world, honestly, with the Nuyorican.
Wonderful. And I'm so excited that you're going to be performing your signature piece. But before we go, we really got to go because they're wrapping us. What's that statement, your phrase, your favorite phrase? Because I just love it. And I think it's a wonderful note to end on.
I write to find the part of me that lives in you, and for you to find the part of you that lives in me.
Oh, that's it. That's all there is to say. And what else is left to say is you guys can't go anywhere, because when we come back, Jani Rose is going to recite her signature piece, What's in a Name. So don't go anywhere.